Hello and welcome back to the Halley Races One podcast. I'm Dane Cash, and I'm here with bike racing analyst extraordinaire Cosmo Catalano. As ever, Cosmo, Tadej Pagotchar, I think he's now tied for third most monument wins in history. What's the headline from today?
We survived another monument that could have been an email.
Oof. I mean, harsh but true.
It depends, but yes, it depends what you're looking for, right?
Depends what you're looking for. The guy or girl, whoever updated the Cycling Monument Wikipedia page already to show that he now has 9, that person was probably looking for it. I think they were looking for it. With that headline said, I'll say that when we were planning the show, I expressed concern about what we're going to talk about for 20 minutes. But you, as ever, you saw some stuff in this race. Well, so take us to the critical moment.
We'll go straight to the critical moment. Let's do this. Well, this is honestly, that's a bad segue for the critical moment because I can make it work. I can make it work.
Okay.
Why am I looking at this? Are you seeing a still image or are you seeing video?
I'm seeing a still for now.
Oh, let me pull this one down. Removed from studio.
Podcast listeners are missing out on all this joyful. There we go. I see a Tadej Pagotchar right there.
Yeah. So this is the critical moment, and this is not your typical UAE / Tadej Pagotchar about to win the bike race, right? Like you don't have a bunch of UAE guys whittled down to their last person who isn't Tadej with the field strung out in agony behind them. You've got Tadej kind of tucked in behind Alaphilippe. There's some UAE guys there, but they're not ripping the field to shreds. EF's riding on the side, 3 wide in some spots. And, we're getting into the camper vans. Tadej's going to take a look behind him and be like, there's not that many people here. I feel pretty good. Kind of ride sideways right in front of Pidcock and then do his seated acceleration. And UAE guy sees it and kind of eases off. EF's like, I guess we'll kind of chase this. We'll at least string it out. But you can see right there, big margin. Didn't come back for the rest of the day.
I think most of us were expecting a gold helmet to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah. Well, I feel a little bit bad, honestly, kind of calling out the lack of gold helmet at this point in the race and at most points of the race. I mean, I think the first time I saw Remco back with the cars in his golden Olympic champion helmet was 123K to go, 130K to go. Like he was from the very beginning, did not seem like he was super strong. And his team also wasn't that great. We saw Louis Vervaeke drop out of the race or fall out of the main group. I don't know, 90K, like really, really early.
Yeah, it was just not his day. And I think the performance today was an entirely reasonable thing to expect for someone who just came back to racing. It's just that when we saw him at Amstel looking so good.
Well, we saw Brabant's appeal off the couch.
Yeah, there we go.
Into the bike race. Doing great.
I apologize for the erasure of the non-World Tour race.
Brabant's a pale. Somebody should probably
a good race.
Touch me on that one.
Great race. Pagotchar goes clear. It wasn't like he got a huge gap, though, right away. There was actually a stretch where I'm thinking, okay, we might have a race on our hands. This could maybe be an okay thing where we get a chase going.
I don't know how much yes, he didn't not officially, according to the time gaps posted, his gap was 10 seconds at the top of the climb. I'm not sure that's super representative. We saw Tom Pidcock kind of attack by himself over the top of the climb, which I think I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, how maybe this wasn't the best decision, but you'll see like there aren't 30 riders in this picture. There's Pidcock, there's a group of 2, there's another guy looking back, Alaphilippe. There's a few other riders strung out behind him, but the practical gap, right? The gap between Pagotchar and a critical mass of the peloton was pretty substantial at this point.
So from this point on, he not only holds on, but he actually quite emphatically, I would say, increases his lead. Even when there was a somewhat organized chase behind him, goes on to win by over a minute. Dominant win. Pagotchar winning Liège, not a surprise. Honestly, Pagotchar winning Liège dominantly with an attack on La Redoute, not a surprise. And so we are left wondering, okay, well, first of all, if you're a cycling media outlet, then you have to take on the situation where you do what Kit did today, writing the report, where the headline is Pagotchar has used up all our headlines. And that's true. However, as I mentioned before, as I teed this up before, you saw some stuff earlier in the race.
Yeah.
There were teams that actually did, you think, the right thing, the tactically smart things, and there were also some things that you thought that could have been done differently.
Well, going back to when we first looked at that critical moment, like this wasn't a day where UAE just grabbed everybody by the neck and shook them until they fell down. Like this was a very kind of cagey tactical race. You saw different teams chasing. You saw Ineos at 130K to go put up a 2-man time trial in no man's land. It didn't work, but it was cool. It gave us something to talk about. It wasn't that typical the pattern we're used to with Pagotchar. And
yeah,
we also saw a lot of work from EF and Lidl Trek, and it didn't pay off in the sense that like they won. It was still Pagotchar dominating everybody. But if you look at the run into La Redoute, you can see here like you've got Tudor Pro Cycling leading it in. You hadn't seen them all day. They got their their best two guys together in front of Alaphilippe, put them at the front and raced this downhill and got into the climb in perfect position. EF was right there. UAE was obviously there, but not dominating. And Lidl Trek actually had probably their weakest moment as a team, kind of leading the race, setting the pace here. But because they had a lot of bodies, they were together, they communicated, they're not in an unsalvageable spot here. Like the attack went almost at the very bottom of the climb as soon as they were in the camper vans. And their Lidl was, you didn't quite see them in that picture from the video, but they were still close enough that they could pull riders in and get into the climb later on. I think that's, you can see after Pagotchar's attack goes and we see the regular humans attacking, EF is leading Healy, so he's got a pretty clear shot to Cicconi's wheel. Ciccone is the one from Trek who kicks it off, moves up. You've got Alaphilippe there in frame, well set up by Tudor. Pidcock does really well here, despite not having the same team support. I think that should really, I think he's going to look at this spring and not think he did such a great job. I think for a guy on a smaller team in his first season riding for that smaller team, like the smaller team's first time being there with a top classics contender, I think they did pretty well. Yeah. And you'll see Ben Tullet right here. You'll see him kind of just after the top of the climb, and then you won't see him again because he had to move up. I think if we go back to this image, you can just see him. He's in the right at the back of the Lidl Trek circle, little yellow spot. No teammates in front of him, no teammates behind me, no teammates next to him. Probably had to do a lot of work to get into that position, and it cost him later on.
So that's where, I mean, when we were putting the run sheet together, you wrote, Lidl Trek and EF did a lot of work, and I wrote, for what? And as you're pointing out, like if you're Ben Tullet, that's why, because you're exhausted from moving up in the peloton. It didn't translate to a win, but it did translate to the best result in a monument that Ciccone or Healy had ever had. Yeah. And also they were, well positioned to take advantage of if Pagotchar had anything go wrong, right? And so tactically, that's the right call. Even if it didn't work out, it doesn't mean the tactics.
I think that might have been what was on Pidcock's mind, kind of at the top of La Redoute when he made that big surge. Was like, one, this worked out well in Strade Bianche. I took that chance. Two, all these guys behind me had teammates that they worked with. If this comes back together, which it came pretty close to doing. I mean, it wasn't like those four guys were just gone. Maybe we should jump and show another picture here.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was this group back here. You can see Tullet in the background in his yellow. That kind of reformed with Ciccone and Alaphilippe as Healy and Pidcock were up the road. And Ciccone's attack brought Alaphilippe across, and you had this group of four that really, Dane, what you wrote in the spreadsheet was like rare case of G2 not having G2 syndrome.
That's true. I was really surprised to see, not entirely. There was a moment where, I guess, Pidcock and Alaphilippe maybe attacked. So it wasn't full on, comprehensive collaboration, but it was a lot of working together.
Guys were riding. No one was taking tickets. No one was looking around. You saw Alaphilippe dangle a little bit, but that's Alaphilippe. That's just how he does.
Yeah. It was, this was not something you could chalk up, because there have been a lot of races in the past where we finish the race, we come on this show and we say, look, Pagotchar's great. He did Pagotchar things, but like, they might have been able to catch him if they'd actually tried. That was not this. This was not a case of that.
I wonder if we might be seeing teams sort of anticipating the Pagotchar destroying everybody and kind of thinking, we can still get on the podium here. We can still have a great result, a big result that's going to get camera time. Like there's only so much you can film Pagotchar riding alone. At some point, they're going to cut back, show the group, show what was a really good battle for the rest of the podium. And I mean, you could see, the only thing I would take away from Pidcock was that because he made that surge, and he said this himself in the post-race interview, he didn't really recover in time for the Roche Faucon. Like he was pretty cooked. He worked pretty hard in the chase. And you can see Ciccone here making the attack. Healy, very, very cagey guy. Never seems to go full gas when he responds. Really seems to ramp up. You see him doing that here. And they'd get together, and I don't think he ever made, and maybe it was just Ciccone's in great shape too. I don't think Healy made a serious effort to get rid of him, even though Ben Healy is not a guy who wants to go to the line with anyone who isn't Ben Healy. So,
yeah, I think in general we saw throughout the day, I would say on the whole, EF and Healy rode very well. After, I think, quite frequently we see it helps that he's wearing pink, and he has like a particularly big helmet, so you see him a lot.
Does he have a big helmet, or does he have a small head?
Maybe, yeah, could be both. But yeah, he's a very visible guy, and he's often on the camera doing visible things. Today, I think we saw him being visibly like quite tactical, and his team doing a great job. And they, as we said, they didn't fall prey to Group 2 syndrome when there was still a chance to catch Pagotchar. And then when Pagotchar was clearly gone, when that ship had sailed, then Healy and Ciccone both went into, okay, we're going to try to get our best result we can mode. And yeah, I mean, the battle for the podium was still pretty interesting to watch because they had this group behind them, a big group behind them, chasing them.
With a lot of teammates, and like actively, teams were actively kind of playing cards. At one point, you saw Brandon McNulty going off the front to try and get up to this group just in case, something goes wrong with Pagotchar. One, he could win the race. Two, he could mess up their chase. So if Pagotchar gets a flat, rides over a corner, goes off the road, he can help mess them up so that Pagotchar has a chance to get back on the race, stay solo with the win. And then you had who was it behind him? Blanking now. One of the EF riders, might have been Paulus, on McNulty's wheel, kind of running away. Like, it was very unusual. And I think it was
Paulus. Might have been Bodan, but yeah.
I think it was, yeah. I didn't check the number, unfortunately. But they were both in that group. The EF had a lot of guys at the front of this race. And again, Pagotchar still smushed everybody. But the action behind was more interesting because EF was there playing their cards.
Yeah, so all told, Pagotchar gets the win. Big surprise. And did it in a way that I think, well, I mean, the attack when it came was not the same level of like devastation as we saw on the mirror. It was a big, powerful attack, but his ability to sustain it is what I think won him the race. The fact that he then kept going, even though the chase was on it behind him. And just goes to show you how comprehensively good he is, how good he is at so many different things. Like, yes, he's made mistakes. He took a corner too hot at Flanders. He crashed at Strade, but he still won by a minute. He's just really good at a lot of different things. The other thing that really stands out to me, as we now shift into what does it all mean territory, because yes, he won the race. And in case you are wondering, Giulio Ciccone took second and Healy took third. I am just constantly struck by how consistent Pagotchar is. I mean, he's like, is so good in such a variety of races the past 2 years now. Yes, there was a stretch where that wasn't the case. But to be able to be competitive in the spring, well, I mean, starting at the UAE Tour, really, all the way to now, is just something really special. We've seen Van der Poel, we've seen Evenepoel sometimes be able to challenge him. But it's not like they start to challenge him and then Pagotchar regresses and, he's getting weaker and weaker because he's getting fatigued. Like we talked about fatigue a week ago. And then at Flesh, he destroyed everybody. And back to again today, he was super strong. So he's managed, I think, at this point in his career to figure out how to consistently put in this kind of performance.
Consistency is an interesting word to use because I agree. We've seen performances like this, but I think what he kind of struggles with on the bike is consistent focus and attention. Like somebody was commenting on something I did about Pagotchar's bike handling. It's like, I think his bike handling is actually really good. Like if you go to Roubaix, to get to the point where he was in Roubaix with Mathieu van der Poel, like you can't be a weak bike handler. Even making it around those corners at racing speed at an uninteresting point in the race is incredibly hard to do. I think what he really struggles with is attention. I think we saw that today. There were a couple of corners after he was away clear where he's like looking over his shoulder, kind of trying to see what the gap is, and then has to adjust his line twice through that bend because he's not really thinking like, what do I need to do here? I think at Liège, or at Amstel, I think we saw him crack a little bit because he didn't have enough to eat, which we've seen in the Tour de France a couple of times.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of, we almost saw it at Roubaix. We had to get the bailout bottle from the car. So I think if there's a weakness here for Pagotchar, it's that he doesn't. Somebody wrote a kind of a jokey ADHD headline with Pagotchar, but it is sort of true. He does really need that constant engagement, and when he loses that is when he shows his weaknesses.
I think that's a great example. EF working hard to and Little Trek working hard to put their guys into good position. UAE with their strong race, Dome and Novak. There were a lot of tactical things that put actually all of the top 3 riders into their positions today that I'm glad we are able to highlight, because at the end of the day, it really was the Pagotchar show for 40K, and his power, is what sealed the deal. But that doesn't, as you said earlier, that doesn't mean there weren't things to talk about. Have we not heralded anyone yet who maybe deserves it?
I was just gonna with my theme of teams doing well behind Pagotchar. Julien Bernard of Little Trek was like, he looks quite distinctive. He's got kind of scraggly beard, and he was on the front for like 50K, and then he goes back to help Ciccone come back from a flat, and instead of the bike change, for whatever reason, they do a wheel change. So he's back there for 30, 40 seconds. Then he chases back through the group, actually picks up Magnus Cort on the way, and then 2 minutes later, he's back at the front and pulls for another 50K, basically right into the foot of La Redoute. Falls off, I think, on the climb right before it, actually, the Col de Nier. And, that is actually Little Trek's weakest team moment in the race, is when they kind of stop pulling. I think part of that is because Bernard was cooked, was done, and couldn't kind of pull the same way. So I thought it was a super strong outing, and well rewarded by Ciccone taking second.
I mean, all told, it's been a really strong team-wide classic season for Little Trek. We wrote about this last week when Skelmozo won Amstel, how for most of the spring we've been talking about Mess Peterson leading this super strong classic squad, and then transition into the Ardennes Classics, where it's mostly a different squad. I think Liège is an entirely different squad, right? I haven't checked this. It's certainly mostly a different squad. And yet they're still consistently contending, either winning or podiuming in a bunch of these races. Really, really strong team performance from Little Trek, with depth throughout the squad. Having those guys to do that hard work, like you just pointed out, to then set up the riders like Ciccone, who's just sort of, I have to say, I didn't expect Ciccone to do this well coming into the race. And we've seen Ciccone do really well when, given opportunities to climb in the past. So maybe I should have been expecting more from him. But when Skelmoza and Thibaut Nice are your sort of biggest stars for the event, I sort of see Ciccone as the third option. And yet he's the one who finished second. Great ride today. Looked really strong. Meanwhile, they still had Thibaut Nice and Andrea Baggioli in the top 10. So all told,
was in that second group with Tulit when Ciccone and Alaphilippe went. So he may have actually played some role in
right.
It was hard to see because the cameras were all over the place, but he may have played some tactical role in helping Ciccone get sprung from those chasers.
Yeah, sure. Nobody comes to mind for me as being over heralded coming into the race other than Evenepoel, and I kind of want to give him a pass because of the fact that, he is still coming back from his injury. So anybody else though for you?
No, I not really. It's I always, unless there is somebody who comes in as a top favorite and just completely, is a cloud of dust. With Wout, I've been like, I don't want to be on him too hard because we knew he's coming back. Same with Remco. But yeah, nothing springs to mind.
All right. Well, in that case, we'll close it out, the men's discussion, with a little like Tadej Pogačar appreciation, because it's just a stat here from Cafe Rider, which is a good indication of just how impressive Pogačar's season has been. So this is in a calendar year apparently, and Pogačar probably going to win Lombardia, right? So this is impressive company. He's already joining today.
Probably going to win.
I mean, he's won it 4 times the last 4 years. So, right. But he, having today joined, who else is he with here in the 3 Monument Club? I know Sean Kelly's there. Fausto Coppi as well. Those are some names to be part of. Costante Girardeno is the other one. Girardeno, who born in 1893, so he may be a little bit But yes, he's a little bit before our time. But yeah, that is some fine company to keep for Pagotchar, now being tied for third most monuments behind Merckx and De Vlaeminck. And the fact that he's also a Tour de France winner. Yeah, I mean, we keep coming back to this, but it really is special. And I think I've said this before, but for like the last, basically ever since I've been in this sport, like anytime any rider comes along and impresses anyone, you hear the Merckx comparisons. But Pogachar's the first one I feel like where I'm starting to think, okay, that's something that I can think is a fair thing to compare him to, because of the fact that he's won such a variety of races. Really, really impressive.
Merckx comparisons always came with this caveat about, it's not possible in the modern peloton. We don't have the same guys racing in these different races. And part of that was the logistical preparations required for the Tour de France. But now that you have riders kind of competing across more disciplines, even though that's relatively common compared to past periods of history, Pagotchar really stands out among his peers in this era. And so it's very like the Merckx comparison is now that people sort of kind of have a chance to do Merckx things again. Pagotchar is the only one who looks like Merckx, like at all.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, when we talk about greatness, it's often in comparison to other riders at the time. I mean that's kind of what it should be, I think. And he's just so much head and shoulders above everyone else in what he's doing. This is another cool stat. Pete Baguette has it in our comments, and then it's from Killian Kelly on the cycling history expert that he is. That Remco had a chance to become the third rider to win his first 3 appearances in a given monument, because he's only raced to Liège twice before this. He won both times. Didn't work out, but that would have been quite a stat as well. But as Carlos points out, white bibs are great, and in fact, white bibs good, gold helmet bad, and that I think maybe is what really decided it today.
I feel like it's the wrong gold. I feel like it's not a 2025 gold. I feel like there's probably some. If there were still a tumbler, there would be some Gen Alpha designer with an appropriately gold 2025 helmet. It's kind of a flat gold.
I see.
It's just like, it almost feels like you took your mid-level helmet and you made it a gold color to kind of shake things up. I don't know. It doesn't, you can see it in the peloton, which is great, but it doesn't scream, I won the Olympics.
Well, maybe if Soudal's watching, they'll make a change. All right. Women's race. Pretty fantastic finale. What's your headline?
Once again, the women's race was better than the men's
race.
That's
true. That was definitively true today.
Again, we're kind of good getting back to the cross pollination of various cycling disciplines. We had a mountain biker outsprint another mountain biker, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, and
I have a better headline.
Surprising winner.
Slow and steady wins the chase.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Because
I've heard of that.
Really made her way back to the group fairly steadily.
Yeah,
she wasn't in the top 4 coming over the top of the climb, I don't think. But
it was a show of endurance coming back, and then and a surprising winner, to say the least, was Kim Lacourt, ahead of Puck Pieterse and Demi Vollering. Wheel Talk will have more, of course, so head over to listen to that this week. I think we've covered Liège and the classics generally well enough at this point, Cosmo, and maybe we can take a short break before, air quotes, Grand Tour season, end air quotes, begins. You stoked for the Giro?
I am stoked for the Giro. I want to see Wout do some Giro things.
I would love to see GC Wout take on headline grabbing Juan Ayuso at the Giro d'Italia. It's going to be fun. And we'll be back for that. So we'll be here to talk about Giro stages. We'll tell you exactly what the plan is when we've actually formulated it. So just know that it's coming. Stay tuned for that.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join Escape Collective.
Go to escapecollective.com. Sign up to become a member so that you can be in here talking with us, sharing these cool stats with us. Head on over to escapecollective.com. Check out all the coverage from today's racing. We'll be back for the Giro. I'm Dane Cash. Who are you? What was this?
I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that was the How the Race Was Won podcast.